All right, Cooper Webb, 12 years into your pro career, 5 titles, and currently leading the points. Is it like when you look back at your full career, like what did you expect out of your career? Did you expect you'd be here? How good did you think you would be?
Not this good by any means of the imagination. I think as a kid, I've said it before, but my goal was just to make it pro, and was able to do that, obviously. And once I got, my first podium and your first win, it's like these things just happen, and you just naturally progress. And I knew like year 2, that's when in my 250 days, like, okay, I could be a champion, and that was then, if I did that, that was like the biggest thing ever. So I think as you go each year, your goals kind of adjust and align. And then, but with that being said, if you would have told even a 16-year-old Coop where I'm at now, I don't know if I would have believed you or thought it was even possible. So obviously as you get winning and you have success, you get a little greedy and you always want more. And you think of the times what coulda, shoulda, woulda. But I think overall, man, it's been a hell of a career for sure.
Yeah, and the reason I ask that is I look at your amateur career, and you sort of played second fiddle a little bit to Adam Cianciarulo, and maybe that wasn't fair. You didn't have the same equipment he did. You didn't have the same support he did. You were always right there. But then when you look at your pro career, it flip-flopped. And that's unfortunate for Adam, but you really never know what's going to happen from the transition to amateur to pro. But you have made, by far, the best of what you were given.
No doubt, and we had a lot of support, and I won a lot of championships too as an amateur, right?
People kind of forget that.
For sure, and I think for me, it was something where, I look back and it did feel that way at the time because of more or less, the equipment and just the sponsorships he had and the abilities he had. And, when I look back, I think as a super mini rider, like he was riding with RV with Eldon, and, I was at a local track going to school, didn't really have much going on besides riding maybe once a week or something like that. So with that all being said, I think we see now the way we did it was probably, for my case, better, right? It made me really respect my equipment, and I earned everything that I've accomplished. And, my family sacrificed a lot, and I think it kind of has still always, like, I don't forget those things. I don't forget where I came from. I don't forget those days of, not maybe eating or whatever the case was, right?
Yeah.
It makes you strong. So I think it's crazy to look back on, when I look at those amateur days. I did have a lot of success, and I always thought I was a good rider, and I obviously was. But you definitely second question yourself in those times.
Okay, 2019, 2021 450 champion. 2025, we're on the right path. Are you the best Cooper Webb you've ever been riding right now? Or do you feel like maybe you were a little better in those championship years?
I think I'm the best right now. And I think all of us would say the same. Kenny, Eli, myself, all the guys that were in those 2019, 2021 years. And don't get me wrong, I was very good those years and fast and strong and fit. But I just think it shows how much it's evolved. The effort and the sacrifice and how good you have to be on race day now to get a win is incredible. It really is. And I think of nights back then where even 2019, it was almost like once I got going and confident and things were rolling, pretty much no matter what, I was going to get a fifth, or a podium was riding at 80%. So
yeah.
That's definitely not the case anymore. I mean,
No.
like I said it last year and even this year, I've been some of my best nights riding wise, and it's not even maybe a top 5. So it's definitely gnarly. I do think I'm the best version of myself I've been. I feel like my speed has gotten a lot better. I feel fit as I, did those championship years. Feel great on the bike. I feel like the motorcycle's awesome. And it's easy to say that, but I do truly think I'm riding the best I ever have.
Okay, so speaking on that and the evolution of the progression of the sport, 29 years old, right? 29?
Yep. 29.
Okay, so, and a lot of the Eli and the guys, Kenny, at almost probably the best they've ever been. But right now, that higher, older age, high level is incredible. How do you adjust? How have you adjusted your training and recovery for the age? Has it changed a lot?
For me, not so much. Obviously, I came when I was in KTM days from Eldon, where that was extreme, right? Those were even when I went back in 2023 versus 2019, 2020, 21, like the workload that we were doing those first few years on KTM was very gnarly, a lot, and I think at certain points, especially when outdoors came around, like you were feeling the effects of that. But yeah, now, no, I mean, I think my off season was probably volume-wise by far the biggest I've had, hourly training and laps and stuff like that. So, I think you learn a program that works for you. Obviously, the Swanepoel program's been great for me, and it is a bit different than Eldon's, and it was a bit different than other things I've done. But as he was a racer, so I think he knows when to push and when to let you, recover and stuff like that. So, no, I don't think we've changed. Like I said, on my end, from the number side alone, we haven't changed much. Obviously, for me, my diet is something that's really changed this last 2 years. I'd say I've really had to nail that in and, make some sacrifices there. That's not great, but it is what it is.
I can't do it.
But yeah, I think from a training side, you just get wiser, right? You know what your body can and can't handle, and you know what the recovery process takes. I feel like I'm actually recovering great at my age. I'm sure 30s. Once you hit 30, it might change and this and that. And but even for me, I think once I hit 25, even like it went from I could eat whatever I wanted before then and not train and feel great, and after 25, you can't live like that. So, but it is cool to say that, hey, I still put in as much work as I really ever have.
What about just maturity level, relationship with other riders? I know you're kind of a guy that has, like, you like to have a chip on your shoulder. It seems like it motivates you, but just, I remember your 250 days, and you and Tyler Bowers and some of you, like, you would lose your shit sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, like, I think I told you this before, like, I didn't like you then.
No.
And this was before I was doing this job. I was like, man, he's a punk, but
yeah.
You've matured, and like, I feel like you're just a different guy.
I do feel like that, right? I think, as you get older, you learn every year, right? And I think for me, yeah, being 29 and us all as the older group, like we all have matured. We've been around the block. A lot of us have kids now. I think the kids really mellowed me out a lot.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I still have that confidence in myself and that little bit of chip on my shoulder, but definitely was arrogant as a younger lad, and could get away with it sometimes, but then sometimes you couldn't. So you just learn as you go. Like, you calm down, you mellow out. It's not there was times in my life where I thought motorcycles and dirt bikes were everything and the only thing, and I think as you get older, you understand there's it's still the coolest thing ever, but there's more to life than just moto.
Yeah, family changes things, like you said, your kids, and you realize that's the priority. Like, yeah, I love to go racing, but I'm doing this now for them.
Yeah, and it's, a lot of people feel differently, but I think it's more or less you just appreciate it, right? Like, I get to travel the world racing my dirt bike at a high level, and for me, like I've talked about it this year, like I truthfully love being in the situation I'm in, like in a title fight. Like, it brings me happiness and like just completion of like, hey, what I'm doing is paying off. So some people look at it as stress. Some people look at it as like, oh, it's a lot of pressure. But like, I truly live for that. So like I said, I think just being in the fight at this point in my career and still going for wins and championships and going with my family, and I'm not dumb. In a few years, I'm going to be waking up going, what the hell am I going to do now? So I think that's where some of us are at, right? We really cherish those days of training. We cherish those days at the track. We cherish the fans and being in these stadiums and racing our dirt bikes.
Following up on that maturity thing for a minute, that also fandom comes with that. The fans, if you're being a punk, you get booed a little bit maybe.
Oh, yeah.
And now I think they see, even when I first met you, I had the idea that you were going to be a punk.
Yeah.
But you're really more humble than maybe your on-track persona. And that chip on the shoulder to motivate you thing kind of goes along with that. But I think people are starting to see who you are, and you hear the cheers now more now. Yeah, so I think that's got to be very motivating too.
No, it is, and it's been cool. Like you said, I feel like I've had a lot of ups and a lot of downs throughout my career, and same with my attitude and personality. And like you said, just being around, and me and Baby more that blue collar kind of head down, just grinder now than maybe I was. And yeah, it's funny. Obviously, like I see it now with a teammate of mine, and I was the same way, right? So
Yeah.
it's evolution. You see it, and I think I felt like a sense of entitlement that once again, I wasn't given anything, and so I was like, all right, F everybody,
Right.
to where it's definitely not the case anymore. So it's cool to see, like I said, as I'm getting older and kind of clicking with the fans and being a family man, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Just a couple more things. So the chip on the shoulder. If I were to tweet tomorrow during qualifying, yeah, I don't think Cooper's got it tonight. Chase is better in the whoops and Kenny's better here, and you see that. Do you take things like that and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna show those guys tonight? Does that how it works?
Yeah, 100%. And that's how I've always been, right? And I think it started at a young age, right? We talked about it earlier in this interview of being a young guy that maybe didn't get the credit I deserved. And like I said, even now, it's a motivating factor for when someone says you can't do something, at least for me. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a common trend, and we all know. But yeah, it's something where I feel like sometimes maybe I don't get the respect that I totally deserve, and that's more where it comes from.
All right, I want to go back just real quick to your transition to the 450 career. It probably didn't go exactly how you expected. 17 and 18, I think, one podium in each those 2 years. Was it just that big of a jump to the big bike, or was there other things going on? Like, what do you remember about that time period that was such a struggle?
It was a few things. I mean, looking back, I think I was very cocky and, thought I was on top of the world. I was 21 years old, just signed a big Yamaha deal, and had came off of that 2016 year was by far my best year. Leading up to that, I won every championship there was. I won the GP. We went to Nations and should have won that and had that mistake and stuff like that. And I just think I didn't take the off season as serious as I probably should have.
Okay.
And also I thought I knew a lot more than I did. Obviously, I did really struggle with that motorcycle at first, but then we got to a position where it was starting to click, and like I said, we got from what I remember, it was like a fourth, and I think back-to-back fourths, a third, and then things I felt like were about to turn the page, and I had separated my shoulder, had a chain snap that week, and just one of those freak deals. But I think just that took you back. Like I'm trying to race with a injured shoulder that I should have got fixed, but I didn't at the time, and it just makes for a long year when you do that. And then that, like I said, I did struggle a little bit on that bike, but that one was decent. Looking back, obviously, like I said, there was a lot of things I wish, knowing what I know now, would have been able to apply there. And then that 18 year was just more injury plagued. I raced the GP in September of 17, and I did my UCL, so I don't think I started riding until like December 1st that year, and it was a brand new Yamaha, so that year was tough. I wasn't confident. I was a lot fitter and a little bit wiser that year, but just didn't have confidence. I came in injured. At that point, like I said, I went from being the guy to like battling for 5th to 10th place, and I think mentally it was really hard for me to even want to be out there, which sounds bad, and
it's fair. Yeah, I get it.
Coming from a championship mindset and being first or on a bad night third in the lights class, and you have all that rumor of like, hey, what happened? He's only a 250 guy or whatever. But yeah, I just had a lot of injuries that year. I did my wrist, and then I ended up breaking my leg, and then same thing, just came back always too soon. So that's where I think KTM still saw the old 250 coupe in me, and that was just a blessing. Honestly, it really worked out. The timing of it was incredible, and I had such a low that year in 18. Like, I was truthfully very down and just, wasn't sure which way to go. At one point, even I had talked to Bobby Reagan about going back and just racing 250 outdoors. That's how kind of like lost I was. So for the KTM thing to come up, and even then, like at that time, no one else was really interested. I think MCR was my other option at the time. Like,
that's crazy. Like how your career could have went a totally different
correct.
direction.
So obviously, I credit my KTM a lot for helping me, get back on track. And I just think it was like, just for Roger to say, "Hey, I believe that you can win," was like, that's all I needed.
Yeah.
And went to Eldon's, and obviously the rest was history.
All right, last one. Just over halfway through the 2025 season, I feel like this is a point where you kind of have to say, all right, podiums are good enough. I don't have to fight for wins if they're not there. But as a racer, that's a difficult mindset. How do you balance that?
I think for me, there is still a lot to go, right? I mean, it's easy to say that, right? But if you do the math, that isn't exactly going to work. At some point, you're going to have to win some races. So, I mean, I think for me, I feel good, right? I felt like my weeks are the same. You know, I'm a kind of traditional guy where I keep everything the same, and to an extent, you know, but more with the training and the laps and all that. And yeah, I mean, obviously, if it's not there, I'm gonna not force the issue by any means. But I also feel like I'm capable of winning some races right now, and you know, Jet and Eli aren't here, so I mean.
Yeah.
It's not going to get any easier when they come back. So I think there's real opportunity to try to nail some more wins. And it's cliche, but seriously, just take it weekend by weekend. Obviously, I have a nice little cushion right now, but anything can happen in racing, and that's why we race every weekend. And same thing, we got a lot of open stadiums. You never know what's going to happen with that, weather-wise, and anything can happen in racing. So to me, I'd rather be on the offense and keep building and trying to collect more points than being on the defense.